dishonest thing a man has ever admitted without apology. I stopped waiting to be understood the year I turned 13. Learned that the weight a boy carries is his alone to carry. And nobody enters that particular room, and nobody should. Not because they're cruel, because they can. The door was built from the inside. Only I have the key. Only I know what lives there. And nobody is coming. I made peace with it. No one holds a man when the man starts to crack. No arms for the demons, no witness for the war. Just a man and his darkness behind a closed door. And I am comfortable there. I've always been comfortable there. Don't expect to be held when the floor gives out. Don't expect a hand in the particular dark that only visits me at 3 a.m. when the armor is off and the body remembers everything the mind spent all day trying to forget. I expect nothing that is not emptiness. That is the most honest relationship a man can have with his own life. I am alone with my demons. I know each one by name. We have an understanding. They don't win. I don't pretend they aren't there. Nobody is coming. I made peace with that. No one holds the man when the man starts to crack. No arms for the demons, no witness for the war. Just a man and his darkness behind a closed door. And I am comfortable there. I have always been comfortable there. I watch men collapse when the loneliness arrives. Surprised by it like they expected something different. I was never surprised. I was trained early by silence, by rooms where strength was the only acceptable language, by fathers who carried what their fathers carried without translation, without complaint. Handing down not the wound, but the discipline of surviving it alone. Obligation not to be perfect, Not to be fearless, not to be without the particular darkness that visits all of us. The obligation is simpler and harder than all of that. To be strong enough that the mind doesn't break before the body delivers what needs to be delivered. Strong mind, strong body, no audience, no applause, just a daily, private, unglamorous act of a man who chose to carry it and keep moving. Nobody is coming, I made peace with that. No one holds a man when the man starts to crack. No arms for the demons, no witness for the war, just a man and his darkness behind a closed door. And I am comfortable there, I've always been comfortable there. Walks out alone, the way he always walks. No one waiting, no one watching. Just the road and the weight and the particular dignity of a man who never asked to be rescued, because he learned long before the night that rescue was never part of his story. And his story is still being written by him alone, the only way it was ever going to be. Alone and complete, nobody coming. Alone and complete, still here, still strong. Alone and complete. No warning, no mercy, like suffering arriving invited, and staying until it taught everything. I don't thank the ones who loved me, I thank the ones who didn't. The ones who showed me what I was made of by refusing to believe I was made of anything. They handed me the fire, thinking it would finish me. Didn't know I'd been cold long enough to find the fire. Teacher who never left the room, never softened the lesson, never arrived too soon. Every suffering delivered something no comfort could. The specific shape of who I am, carved from what I withstood. I've sat with devastation like it was a dinner guest, passed it every kind of silence, let it take what it thought best. And when it left, I counted what remained, less than before. But what was left was iron, pure, tested mine. No one gives you that, no circumstance hands it across. You only find it on the other side of a particular kind of loss. Pain was was the only teacher who never left the room, never softened the lesson, never arrived too soon. Every suffering delivered something no comfort could. The specific shape of who I am, carved from what I withstood. Bar is full of men tonight who never met their bottom. You can tell by how they carry the lightness of the unloved. Nothing wrong with that, but there is something in the eyes of men who have been all the way down. A particular clarity, a particular calm, the calm of a man who knows the worst already happened, and he's still here. Nobody chooses suffering, but some men choose what they do with it. And they're choosing that specific moment when a broken man looks at the ruins and picks up the first brick. That is the moment that separates the men who were destroyed from the men who were built. I picked up the brick in the dark, alone, without applause, and I laid it down where the foundation needed to be. Pain was the only teacher who never left the room, never softened the lesson, never arrived too soon. Every suffering delivered something no comfort could, the specific shape of who I am, carved from what I withstood. He walks out into the cold, coat pulled tight, cigar burning low. Carrying everything the night gave him, which was never warm, never comfort, never easy, just the particular power of a man who turned every wound into a wall nobody can climb. Pain made me this, still standing strong. Pain made me this, where I belong. Pain made me this. Pain made me this. I stopped explaining who I was. The year I finally knew. Stop performing my intentions for the rooms that never drew. There were men who needed stages, men who needed to be heard. I just needed what I built here, something solid, not a word. Not a single announcement, not a sign above the door. Just the work arriving daily and the silence asking more. The quiet ones outlast the loud, that's a true nobody said. While the bright ones burn for glory, the still man slowly builds his will. Not the kind that fills a ledger, not the kind you hold and spend, the kind that makes you undefeatable from beginning until end. I have walked through rooms of hunger, men who grabbed at everything, watched them burn through every season, chasing what the next would bring. I moved different through the same rooms, touched the walls and learned their age. Understood that every building started as an empty page. So I wrote mine in the darkness, didn't wait for perfect light. Every line I laid in silence, every choice I made at night. The quiet ones outlast the loud, that's the truth nobody says. While the bright ones burn for glory, the still man slowly builds his well. Not the kind that fills a ledger, not the kind you hold and spend, the kind that makes you undefeatable from beginning until the end. Is warm and full of wanting. Every man desires something near. Some desire recognition, some desire to disappear. He desires neither, sits between them, holds his glass without a need. Learn that wanting less than everything is its own particular creed. Not detachment, not indifference, just the discipline of knowing what is worth the reaching for and what is better left to go. Asked him once a secret, how he carried it so clean, how he walked through every fire and arrived at something serene. He just smiled and didn't answer, not from arrogance or art, but because a real answer lies too deep inside the heart to translate it into language built for smaller kinds of truth. The secret is there is no secret, only what you choose to do. In the hours no one witnesses, in the years no one applauds. In the quiet of a life built entirely on your own accord. Oh, the quiet ones outlast the loud, that's the truth nobody sells. While the bright ones burn for glory, the still man slowly the kind you hold and spend, the kind that makes you undefeatable from beginning until end. He places down the glass precisely, stands the way a building stands, walks out into what is waiting with completely open hands. Not because he has no armor, because armor weighs too much for a man who learned that presence is itself the only touch anyone could ever need. The street receives him dark and wide, a gentleman who needs no stage, carries everything inside of the quiet ones last. No stage required. The quiet ones last, built from the inside. The quiet ones last. A man speaking really to the music slip. You were there the night she left, playing low beneath my chest. Didn't ask me what had happened, didn't offer me your best. Just kept playing, just kept moving, like the world still had a pulse. And somehow there was more everything a human voice could give. I talked to the blues when I had nobody, told it everything I couldn't say out loud. And the blues just listened, never judged, never hurried, just played my pain back, slow and dark and proud. There were friends who tried to fix me, handed me their remedy, couldn't hold the weight I carried, left me with their apologies. But you stayed every winter, every silence, every fall, the one companion who demanded nothing and received it all. I would pour and you would answer, I would break and you would bend, meeting every dark confession like it had no shame to lend. I talked to the blues when I had nobody, told it everything I couldn't say out loud. And the blues just listened, never judged, never hurried, just played my pain back, slow and dark and proud. Bar is steps empty, one man left beside the stage. He don't clap between the numbers, just turns slowly like a page, like he's reading something in it, like the music knows his name, like the notes are just his history, played back slowly just the same. Most men never find that language, spend their whole lives left untold. He just found it in a blues bar, somewhere between young and old. Everything a man could never say, the only conversation that ever felt complete. There is something in the minor key that daylight never holds, something honest, something ancient, something only sadness knows. Not the sadness that destroys you, not the kind that leaves you dry, the kind that sits beside you gently and refuses to ask why. That's the blues, it's the companion, that's the only faithful thing. It takes your words and plays it back like it was words remembering. I talked to the blues when I had nobody, told it everything I couldn't say out loud, and the blues just listened, never judged, never hurt it, just played my pain back, slow and dark and proud. He tips his hat toward the stage, player nods without a word. Two men sharing the same language, the one that only lost is heard. He walks out into the cold night, blues still playing in his chest, the only voice that never left him, the only one that knew him best. The blues never left, playing soft and low. The blues never left, the only one to know. The blues never left. Moaning like a man who finally knows you stood everything away. The year they counted me as gone was the year I learned to build. The room that watched me hit the floor was the room I later filled. Not with noise, not with proof, not with anything they'd recognize. Just presence, just the particular weight of a man who used the bottom as a floor. They thought the quiet meant surrender, they mistook the silence for defeat. But the man who built builds in darkness builds on something more complete. Every floor I hit became a foundation. Every loss became a door. What they call my worst destruction was just clearing space for more. I have been the man they pitied, sat across from their concern, watched them hand me their conclusions about lessons I'd never learned. I just nodded, let them finish, save my energy for work. Because a man who knows what he is building doesn't need to prove it first. I was laying every brick in the hours no one saw, silent, certain, underground, building past the final floor. They thought the choir meant surrender, they mistook the silence for defeat. But the man who builds in darkness builds on something more complete. Every floor I hit became a foundation. Every loss became a door. What they call my worst destruction was just clearing space for more. Bars full of men comparing what they've won and what they've lost, trading stories like the telling somehow covers up the cost. He just sips and listens quietly, lets them measure, lets them weigh, knows the only count that matters is the one at end of day. Did you build when no one watched you? Did you rise when no one cared? Did you find the floor beneath you and decide to start from there? The fire and what remains will turn the rubble, turn the rock and turn. There is no romantic version of the years that made him hard. No beautiful montage of suffering, no poetry, no God. Just a man, just a decision, just a morning after loss, when he looked at what remained and said, this is enough to start. And he started in the silence, without audience, without applause. That was the bravest thing that nobody will ever know about. They thought the choir meant surrender, they mistook the silence for defeat. But the man who built in darkness built on something more complete. Every floor I hit became a foundation. Every loss became a door. What they call my worst destruction was just clearing space for more. He finishes his glass, stands like a building stands, not dramatically, just solidly. Walks out into the night, the way foundations walk. You don't see them, you only see what they hold up. And everything they hold up is still standing, built from the bottom, still standing tall. Built from the bottom, I needed the fall. Built from the bottom, built talk about the hard years, don't display what they've cost. The lines across the silence tell you everything lost. Not with bitterness, with knowing, not with anger, with a calm that only comes from walking through the fire with open palm. He has buried things in private, things no eulogy could hold. Kept them somewhere deep and useful, turned them slowly into gold. He's not hard because it's easy. He's not calm because he's cold. Every scar he carries quietly is a story never told. Men who last were never loudest, men who stand were never sure. He just chose to keep on walking when the road is nothing more. I stood in empty hallways after everything went wrong. Didn't search for someone's comfort, just stood there and stood strong. Not because I didn't need it, because needing and receiving aren't always the same road. And I had learned the difference. Something crumbled under silence. I was built inside of it. Every quiet year that passed me taught me more than I could sit with. He's not hard because it's easy. He's not calm because he's cold. Every scar he carries quietly is a story never told. Men who last were never loudest, men who stand were never sure. He just chose to keep on walking when the road had nothing more. Bar is warm but dimly honest. Every face holds something back. Men who laugh the loudest carry something heavy in the black. He just watches, doesn't judge him, recognizes every weight, knows the distance between breaking and deciding to be great. Not the greatness sold in daylight, not the kind that needs a crowd, the kind that lives in what you carry when you're never saying it out loud.
is something in the lasting. No ambition understands. It lives inside the men who stay with empty hearts and open hands. He didn't ask for what was taken, didn't fight what had to go, just rebuild with what remained, quieter than before. Every loss refined the posture, every scar refined the eye, until the man inside the silence couldn't tell you how or why. Only that he's still standing, only that the night is his, only that the weight he carries is the proof of who he is. He's not hard because it's easy. He's not calm because he's cold. Every scar he carries quietly is a story never told. Men who last were never lauded, men who stand were never sure. He just chose to keep on walking when the road had nothing more. He sets the glass down, stands up slowly. No announcement, no farewell. Carries everything he entered with, and everything he'll never tell. Street is cold and white and patient, receives him like it always has. A man who carries scars in silence, there's the
I want anything nobody knew I lost. Paid for peace at every kind of cost. Sad with grief like it was company. Let it teach me what it came to teach. Not because I'm broken, not because I failed, because the men who feel the deepest are the ones who never tell. Melancholy is not weakness, grief is not a thing to hide. Everything I carried made me stronger on the inside. I don't smile to reassure you, I don't break to make you sure. I just hold the weight in silence, beautiful and dark and pure. Some nights hit like old familiar roads I walked 1,000 times. Same old ache in different clothing, same old weight in different rhyme. I don't fight it when it visits, I just pour and let it sit. Learn that grief and grace together make a man more whole from it. Every loss left something useful, every scar left something clear. That the men who last the longest learn to love what brought them here. Melancholy is not weakness, grief is not a thing to hide.
Every thing I carry made me stronger on the inside. I don't smile to reassure you, I don't break to make you sure. I just hold the weight in silence, beautiful and dark and pure. Quiet now and gentle, piano holds a minor key. Every note a soft reminder of the man I chose to be. Not the man who runs from feeling, not the man who numbs the pain, the man who sits inside the storm and finds the music in the rain. Other men chase lighter evenings, I prefer the weight of this, the particular kind of living that comes only after loss. In what remains, not the beauty sold in daylight, the kind that only darkness trains. I have wept without a witness, I have bled without a sound, I have lost things in the silence most men never even found. And I'm still here, glass in hand, playing low, a melancholy man who learned that carrying the weight with dignity is all a man needs to know. Melancholy is not weakness, grief is not a thing to hide. Every thing I carry made me stronger on the inside. I don't smile to reassure you, I don't break to make you sure. I just hold the weight in silence, beautiful and dark and pure. I leave the bar like every evening, slow steps, cold air, empty street, carrying everything I always carry, making heaviness complete. Not a burden, not a sentence, just the weight of being real. A melancholy man of strength, the rarest thing a man can feel. Beautiful and dark, carrying it still. Beautiful and dark, I always will. Beautiful and dark. He don't sit beneath the bright light, always finds the darker end, where the music carries honesty and shadows are a friend. Not because he hides from living, not because he lost the fight, because the men who see the clearest learn to see inside the night. Years of noise had taught him nothing. 1 year quiet taught him all. Wisdom never comes from shouting, comes from watching empires fall. Some men spend their lives performing. He just spent his life away. Every silent observation was a choice he chose to make. He don't need the room to see him. He don't need the last word said. The wisest men sit closest to the dark and carry light instead. Watch the loud ones fading, burning fast to prove they're real, trading depth for recognition, losing everything they feel. I chose different when I had to, turned away from all that noise, found that silence had a language richer than 1,000 voices. Now I move through rooms like water, touching everything unseen, learning more from what is hidden than from all that's in between. Some men spend their lives performing. He just spent his life away. Every silent observation was a choice he chose to make. He don't need the room to see him. He don't need the last word said. The wisest men sit closest to the dark and carry light instead. Candle low on polished tables, strangers lean and speak too fast, saying everything they're feeling like it's all too thin to last. He just watches, he just listens, lets the current tell its truth, collects what others throw away, the quiet kind of proof that the man who needs no spotlight sees the most when lights go dim, and everything the room is hiding is completely clear to him. There was something in the stillness no ambition ever gave, a particular kind of knowing only patience ever saves. He had chased the faster living, came back empty, came back thin. Found the only door worth opening was the quiet one within. Every scar became a compass, every loss a steady hand, showing him the slower wisdom only silent men understand. Some men spend their lives performing, he just spent his life away. Every silent observation was a choice he chose to make. He don't need the room to see him, he don't need the last word said. The wisest men sit closest to the dark and carry light instead. He stands and leaves without a signal, fades before the night grows thin, takes the quiet road back outward, same as how he walked back in. Street receives him like it knows him, dark and patient, cold and wide. The wisest men sit closest to the dark and carry all their light inside, closest to the dark, carrying the light, closest to the dark, owning every night, closest to the dark. Amber light on withered faces, smoke curls slow above the glass. The man sits dark inside the corner, letting everything just pass. Not the darkness born from losing, not the kind that breaks a man, the kind that comes from understanding more than daylight ever can. He has seen the bright ones burn, watched ambition turn to dust, learned that every polished surface hides the things that never must. Some men fear the dark inside them, he just gave it room to breathe, turned it into something useful, something no one else could read. Darkness made him more precise, shadows taught him how to see. A sophisticated silence, dangerous and quietly free. I have sat in rooms of brightness where the laughter never stopped, watch the light reveal the empty underneath a gloss and gloss. Gave me nothing I could keep there, left me thinner than I came. So I walk back toward the quiet where the darkness knows my name. Not to hide the thing more clearly, not to more to understand. There is more inside the shadow than the daylight ever planned. Some men fear the dark inside them, he just gave it room to breathe, turned it into something useful, something no one else could read. Darkness made him more precise. Shadows taught him how to see the sophisticated silence, dangerous and quietly free. Bar is full of men performing versions of themselves tonight. Every laugh a small petition, every drink a borrowed light. He don't need the borrowed brightness, he don't need the crowd to stay. Found that everything he needed lived inside the darkest day. Every shadow has a texture, every night a different way. The sophisticated man knows darkness is not something late, it's something early, something early, something most men ever afraid. There is elegance in endurance, there is grace in what survives. Not the polished kind they sell you, the kind that comes from harder lives. He don't wear his wounds like medals, he don't speak of what was lost. Every shadow in his silence is a lesson with a cause. Sophisticated isn't surface, sophisticated is the man who walked through every dark thing standing hand, with a quiet, steady hand. Some men fear the dark inside them, he just gave it room to breathe, turned it into something useful, something no one else could read. Darkness made him more precise, shadows taught him how to see the sophisticated silence, dangerous and quietly free. He finishes the glass stand slowly, straightens everything in place, leaves the darkness right behind him, wearing it like finest lace. Door swings shut, the street receives him, cold air, quiet, nothing more. A sophisticated darkness, that's what gentlemen are for. Darkness made him free, shadows taught him grace, darkness made him free. Lights burn low inside the bar, guitar band soft and deep. A wise man sits beside the window watching strangers fall asleep. He don't rush the passing hours, he don't chase the fading crowd. Just a gentleman in silence where the music plays out loud. Years ago he spoke too quickly, trusted wrong and loved too fast. Now his calm is built on patience and the wisdom built to last. He's a man who chose a quiet when the noise began to grow. When the world kept chasing thunder, he preferred the undertow. Walking slow beneath the stars, leaving pride behind the doorway of 1,000 crowded bars. Some men shout across the room just to prove they still exist, but the strongest kind of presence is the one you nearly missed. I've been standing in a corner watching chaos pass me by. Every loss became a teacher, every fall a map inside. I don't move with announcement like the tide beneath the moon. Not every man who's silent is afraid to leave the room. He's a man who chose the quiet when the noise began to grow. When the world kept chasing thunder, he preferred the undertow. Walking slow beneath the stars, leaving pride behind the doorway of 1,000 crowded bars. There's a bar beneath the skyline where the candlelight burns low. A man sits in a corner watching everything he knows. Every glass reflects a story, every chord recalls a past. But a man who learns from silence finds a peace that's built to last. Truth is louder after midnight when the restless fall asleep. That's the hour quiet men earn the things they get to keep. Everybody sat with candles, watching smoke dissolve in air. Realized every battle didn't need him standing there. Every scar refined his patience, every loss carved deeper ground. He became the kind of quiet other men have never found. Soon he'll stand and leave the building, fade into the empty street, like a shadow no one notices, with a calm that feels complete. No parade, no announcement, the night remembers quiet men, even when the crowd forgets. He chose a quiet, walking slow tonight. He chose a quiet, leaving pride behind. He chose a quiet, he chose a quiet.
Voice of a man who spent years avoiding the fire and found only smoke. I used to believe that keeping the peace and making the peace were the same thing. They are not the same thing. Keeping the peace is the art of postponing the fire, of smiling at the smoke, of calling attention by softer names, so the room stays comfortable for everyone, except the man who knows exactly what is burning beneath it. I was that man for years. I kept every piece that needed to be broken, swallowed every truth that needed to be spoken, and called it maturity. It was not maturity, it was fear, wearing the coat of a reasonable man. The conflicts I avoided did not disappear. Conflicts do not disappear, they migrate. They move from the room into the body, from the unsaid conversation into young sleeping night, from the moment that needed the truth into the months that pay the interest on a debt of silence you never intended to take out. I paid that interest for years. Until I understood that the most violent thing I had ever done to the people I loved was protect them from my honesty. In doing so, protect myself from the discomfort of their response. I am not afraid of the conflict that builds something, the conflict that names the thing that stands in the fire of an honest moment that refuses the comfort of the managed silence. That conflict is not the enemy of peace, it is the price. of the only peace worth having, the kind built on what is actually true, not on what everyone agrees not to say. I have watched relationships built entirely on what was never said. Two people moving carefully around the thing in the center of the room, so practiced in the avoidance that the avoidance became the relationship. Until one day the thing in the room was larger than the room. And what collapsed was not the conflict they had avoided, it was everything they had built around it. I have been in that room. I know the particular grief of watching something fall, not from too much honesty, but from too little, too late. Conflict requires more courage than silence. Silence is all available. Silence costs nothing in the moment. It builds you later with interest in the currency of distance and resentment, and the specific loneliness of being in a room with someone and knowing that the real conversation is happening in neither of your heads, but in the space between you that grew one swallowed truth at a time. Courage is the word for sitting across from someone who matters and saying the thing, the real thing, without the softening, without the management, without the careful edit. That makes the truth easier to receive but impossible to act on. That courage is the foundation everything built on and lasts. I have had the hard conversations now, not all of them went well. Some of them ended things that I had hoped to keep. And I will tell you with complete honesty that even those, even the ones that cost me, built more peace than the years of silence that preceded them. Because I knew, finally I knew what was real, what could hold, what was worth the keeping. And I stopped spending my life in rooms held together by the careful avoidance of the truth that would either strengthen them or reveal they were never strong enough to deserve the keeping. I am not afraid of the conflict that builds something, the conflict that names a thing, that stands in the fire of an honest moment, that refuses the comfort of the managed silence. Conflict is not the enemy of peace. It is a price of the only pleased word, the kind that non-grip must actually segment. I leave tonight unafraid of tomorrow's difficult conversation. I have stopped scheduling my courage for a better moment. The better moment is a myth invented by the part of us that would rather carry the weight than risk the loss. I choose the risk, cause on the other side of every honest conflict I've ever had the courage to enter, I found something I had never found in the silence. I found out what was real, and what was real even when it hurt, even when it cost me, was always worth more than the comfort of never knowing. Peace through the fire, the truth sets me free. Peace through the fire, the real will remain. voice of a man who learned. The hardest lesson from the closest son. The ones who hurt me most never arrived as enemies. They arrived as relief, as recognition, as a particular warmth for someone who seemed to finally speak the same language, carry the same flag, bleed from the same places. I opened the door myself. I wanna be honest about that. I saw what I needed to see, 'cause I needed to see it. Because belonging is a hunger that makes a man lower his eyes at exactly the wrong moment. And in that moment, in the warmth of feeling understood, I handed over the one thing I should have kept: my judgment. The axe entered the forest because the trees recognize the handle. I have been that forest, I have looked at something that was coming for me and said, he is one of us, he speaks our tongue. He raised the same flag we raised. And in that recognition, I felt safe enough to stop watching. That is how it happens. Not in the dark, in the light of familiarity, in the comfort of shared language, in the specific blindness of a man who confused proximity with loyalty and paid the full price of that confusion. I don't distrust out of paranoia. I distrust out of clarity. The hard-won clarity of a man who has watched the most convincing performance come from the closest seat. Discernment is not coldness, discernment is armor. Mental autonomy is not isolation, it is the last defense of a free man. The refusal to outsource his own judgment to someone whose interests he has not yet fully understood. They were there. That is the part I have to sit with. The signs were always there. The slight inconsistency in the story, the loyalty that was loud and public and quiet when it cost something, the agreement that came too easily, that never pushed back, that told me only what I wanted to hear. A man who never disagrees with you is not a man who thinks like you. He is a man who has decided what you are worth and is managing his investment. I know this now, and the knowing sits in me like a stone. Heavy, useful, never world.
I'm not close now. I wanna be precise about that. Closing entirely is just another way of letting them win, of letting the betrayal define the perimeter of your world. I'm open, I'm warm, I'm capable of trust. But trust now is a thing I issue slowly in small denominations, watching what returns before I give more. Not because people are not worthy, because I am responsible for my own clarity, and clarity is not given. It is maintained daily, deliberately, against the very human desire to rest inside the comfort of believing the people closest to you are exactly who they appear to be. Some are work is knowing which. The free man is not the suspicious man. The free man is the lucid man, the one who walks into every room with his eyes at full capacity, who receives warmth without being blinded by it, who hears the language of belonging without surrendering his own translation, who knows that the most dangerous man in any room is the one who makes you feel most at home. Not because home is dangerous.
The voice of a man who found the only freedom that cannot be taken. I used to look for freedom in the outside, in the changed circumstance, the resolved situation, the person who finally understood me, the morning that arrived differently than all the others. I looked everywhere except the only place it was. Then something broke, not in me, something in me, the part that believed the outside world owed me a particular arrangement before I was permitted to be at peace. That part broke, and in the breaking, for the first time, I was free. There are things I cannot control. I've made a complete list. It is almost everything. The weather, the economy, what people think, what people do, what people say about me in rooms I will never enter. Whether I am understood, whether I'm chosen, whether the work is recognized in my lifetime or after it, or never. Mind or control in the moment I stopped trying, the moment I drew the line between what is mine and what is not. I had more energy than I had known in years. I am free, not because my life is easy. I am free because I know exactly what is mine to carry. And I carry it with both hands, with virtue, with reason, with the specific courage of a man who acts rightly, whether or not the world is watching, and puts down everything else
without apology. That is the freedom, the only freedom, the one no circumstance can touch. Virtue is not comfortable. I wanna be clear about that, because men speak of virtue as if it were a reward, as if the good life is the easy life, as if acting rightly comes naturally once you decided to. It doesn't. Virtue is the decision made again every morning against the easier option, against the comfortable lie, against the emotion that arrived first and loudest. And most convincingly, the emotion is not the enemy. The emotion is information. The enemy is the man who acts on it before reason has had its turn. I give reason its turn every time, even when it is slow, even when it costs me the moment. The moment passes, the decision remains. I fail at this. I want you to know that, because men who speak of stoic virtue without admitting failure are selling a philosophy they are not living. I lose my reason, sometimes I act from fear, sometimes I choose the comfortable over the correct sometimes. And then I return, not with punishment, not with self-contempt, which is just another emotion acting before reason. With honesty, with the simple, unflinching account of what happened, what drove it, what I would do differently. And then I move forward. That is the practice, not perfection. Return. The free man is not the man who never falls. He is the man who built the return into the practice from the beginning. I have been wrong. I will not pretend otherwise, because pretending is not virtue, honesty is. I have been wronged, and I have felt it fully, every degree of what it cost, without performance, without audience, in the private room of my own reckoning. And then I ask the only question that matters: what is mine to do now? Not what is owed to me, not what they deserve, not how the story should have gone. What is mine to do now? That question returns me to myself every time. That question is the whole practice. Not because my life is easy. I am free because I know exactly what is mine to carry. And I carry it with both hands, with virtue, with reason, with the specific courage of a man who acts rightly whether or not the world is watching. Puts down everything else without apology. That is the freedom, the only freedom, the one no circumstance can touch. A verb tonight, owing nothing to my weakness, not because I own it.